going to do, we're going to start with putting on the mottled background. And whilst you watch me do this, I want you to take note of a couple of things. And one is the movement of my hand. That's the very first thing I want you to pay close attention to. Now, what I'm doing, I'm setting myself up here with some paper towel that I can have easy access to. I'm going to put it on my table right next to me. I'm just going to use a large filbert brush for putting on my background, but you could use a flat. The only thing I caution you against with flat brushes is sometimes with the sharp corners on the chisel of the flat brush, it might leave little points or marks on the background. I'm also going to use a mop, a large mop, and this will be to soften some of the brush. What I did, I put out my palette, and in front of me here, I've just got my wax palette set in a Masterson Stay Wet palette, but I'm just using the actual wax palette paper that I put in here, just because this is going to be a fairly quick process, and then I can discard the paper after. I've got on my palette pine green, I've got diox purple, I've got raw umber, titanium white, and yellow oxide. Just to keep my paint moving. I've got extender all over the whole thing, but I'm just showing you, I would just put on just a little bit, just enough so that I can feel it on my fingers. Extender has a tendency to feel a little bit oily, like hand lotion. You don't want it to be so heavy that it's actually running down the canvas. I'm going to start off with a little bit of titanium white in my brush. You'll see the titanium white, and I'll pick up just a little bit of the yellow oxide, and I'll load up my brush fairly well. Now, this palette is going to be a mess when I'm finished with it, because this is the background, and I may adjust color by moving around on the palette. So I want to start off, there's going to be dark in this area, but I want to start off with an area that's going to be light, and then work from light into dark. So with that pale yellow that I've mixed, I'm going to just work that color in very loosely. Notice the motion of my hand. It's slip, slap. It's making X's on the surface. Now, if you apply your paint very, very thin, you have nothing to work with. So you have to make sure that when you load your brush, you pick up enough paint that you have a sizable amount of paint on the brush, that when you lay it down, you can blend with it. In other words, spread it around. So I've got some light happening there. I'm going to go in with a little bit of green now. Now, I'm going to mix the green right into that yellow area I was working in, and you can see how bright that green is, way too bright. So I'm going to pop in some of the raw umber, and that's going to dull that green down really nicely. And I'm going to work the green right next to it. Just work my brush around there. Work the green. I'm going to pick up a little bit of extender in my brush just to keep it moving. And when I get to the next color, what I do is I look for the transition area between the two colors. And you can blend that area softly until you cannot see where one starts and the other one ends. See? Now I'm going to go back over here and soften that out a little bit. And each time I do that, I come up on the pressure of the brush. So I lay my brush down and I press fairly hard. You can see I keep my brush open really well, and then I come up. We have a little bit of a drip there. Come up on the pressure of the brush, and just very soft, I work the colors together. Now I can take my mop, this big fluffy mop, and I can sweep the area very gently and remove the harsh brush strokes. And you can see how pretty that is. It's just very soft and fluffy. So I'll find another area, and this time I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Diox Purple. Diox Purple and Pine Green are quite wonderful together, and it makes a beautiful dark. You can see how dark that is. So towards the bottom now of the canvas, I can start placing some of my darks. Go right along the bottom. Again, you've got to have paint in your brush. Right to the edge. And let that purple area now, you can come back into your green and your gold and pick up some of that, and you can allow that now to blend into the lighter areas. Pressure on the brush is going to leave paint behind. See, get your mop out, and where it transitions into another color, you mop it slightly. If you find that it's pulling, it feels like it's tight and it's pulling, it's not spreading, all you have to do is pick up a little bit of extender in your brush and work the paint in. And you can see, very softly, I'm going to go over to some dark now, a little bit of Diox Purple, and a little bit of Pine Green. This is such a pretty way to do backgrounds because it creates a lot of variety and a lot of texture, a lot of movement in the background. A flat background just looks like a wall that's being painted. It really doesn't have much personality. We always want to use some sort of movement in our backgrounds, and this is called mottling. And you'll notice, if you take classes with me, you'll notice that I always use a mottled background. Doesn't matter what I'm painting, if it's a bird, if it's an animal. To me, it gives such opportunity for creating dimension, depth, and interest. And you see, randomly now, I'm just picking up a little bit of the yellow because I'm working with a very small, limited palette here. I'm just picking up a little bit of color, a little bit of extender in my brush. Don't use water. Remember that water is a natural solvent for Traditions paint. It's an acrylic, and water will cause it just to become thin and dissolve. And I want to be able to blend the color nicely. A little bit of extender in my brush. And now I'm going to work up, getting a little bit warmer and a little bit lighter now as I come back up into the yellows. Be more concerned about just getting lights and darks in place. So we'll see when I'm back demonstrating the actual leaves.